Somehow in the last period of time, I have entered what I would call uncharted waters. Which may not be comforting to students, because I can't promise you that anything that I tell you is true. And I've been saying that now for a few weeks, so you're all a little bit familiar with that idea. But it's definitely not comforting, in the sense that I think many people want to be comforted. I think we all want assurance that, one, we know where the ship is headed, that there's some kind of compass, that there's some kind of radar system or navigational system that tells us that the seas will not be choppy, or that we will deal with those choppinesses with a particular kind of redirection of the ship. I have absolutely nothing on that level to offer. Certain things ring truer than others in my daily life, in terms of the bigger picture. I still read a book that I've talked about for years now called I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj, available, I believe, on Amazon. And Nisargadatta is one of the few people that I still read where I go, aha, aha, aha. He is one of those teachers who is no longer within the energy boundaries of what we call normal life. The 3 or 4 dimensional world that we all live in, that has very specific rules and boundaries and karmic consequence. We all inhabit that world, and we can talk about that world. A lot of us are starting to figure out that we're not bound by that world, but those who are bound by that world, we can talk about that. How to live life, basically, how to get through the day, how to deal with your partner, how to earn more money, how to have a career. All that stuff we can talk about that stuff. It all has a certain kind of value, and a lot of people still are very drawn to figuring out this dimension and level of life. But the only thing I can tell you about this level and dimension of life is that it doesn't last long. It's rather short-lived, and all of your mastery in it and of it has limited value. It's not valueless, but it has only a short lifespan. And at some point, often faster than you can even imagine, it's over. And everything that you've learned in it and were working toward and found meaningful will no longer be there for you. It certainly won't be meaningful for you. You won't be able to draw on it because it will be gone. And a lot of you probably believe that at the end of that you will either be in heaven or hell or purgatory, does that still exist for people? Or you will be in blackout, or I guess you all have sort of vague ideas of where you will be when it's over. And my recent rudderless movement, which has no full grasp of it, but it does sense that there will be nothing. It will return to nothing, but it's not nothing as you imagine it. It's not a nothing, meaning an absence of you. There is nothing kind of but you. And you are no thing. And that's, you can't grasp what I'm saying because the mind will play with that. But the you that are have no existence. This is the drama of words, unfortunately. But even there's nothing, there you are. And you will understand at some point that this thing that we're all in is, at its very essence and core, nothing. But that doesn't change the fact that it feels very real and very dynamic and very important and very imbued with meaning and value and consequence. So somehow that which does not exist has made this. And you are both in it, and you will discover at some point you are the it of it. You are the source of it. You are the very essence of it. And that part of you that is that has your body and your mind and your name and your story and all of that stuff, and it goes so beyond that. And ultimately it just evaporates everything you imagined yourself to be. When you do spiritual work, hoping and asking for something to be delivered to you, peace of mind, tranquility, bliss, lots of money, live forever, definitely come back again, whatever the ideas are that you have that you want to get, are going to be disappointed by this process. If you're in spiritual work for a purpose, it's going to be unsatisfied, because it's going to start to lead you into something bigger than you have envisioned, bigger than your mind has prepared you for, bigger than you have dreamed of, and bigger than anything you want. You may even discover it's what you don't want. Probably that will be the case. And it's what you don't want because in order to know who you are, you have to let go of who you think you are. You have to let go of this person that you have embraced with such totality and feels so physically present, and letting go will be painful. Physically, emotionally, mentally painful. Until you do it. It's the expectation of it being painful that keeps people locked into this dimension of existence. It keeps us functioning in the world, trapped, if you will, by the rules and the laws of this dimension. And they're scary rules. You know, I mean, the passage out of this world involves dissolution. And it can be fiery and painful and scary. Being in this world involves an enormous amount of effort to support the life form that you are and the life forms that you may manifest around you, either biologically or in other terms, you know, physically, you know, in terms of career, profession. It's effortful, it's work, it's work, it's work. And then here comes this spiritual practice that in a way undermines it all. But you don't come into it thinking it's going to be undermined. You come into it thinking it's going to make you better at the world. And what it does is basically take the world away from you. And you go, whoa, that's not what I bargained for. That's not why I came here. I came here to become more, not less. But of course, the dichotomy is that as you become less, you become more. But even that more which you become, which is vast and universal, ultimately has no existence. So where does this come together? How does the mind fit into this? How does our life fit into this? Well, and any answer I can give you will, as I've already said at the beginning of this talk and the last months of talks, is that whatever I tell you is wrong. It's just wrong. The answer is not something I can give you, but it's something you can find. And the answer you find, which will probably be an unfolding and expanding answer that will absolutely bring you to a place where you are in, just like I'm describing, uncharted waters. You will find your own uncharted waters. Here's what's interesting. You are in uncharted waters right this second. You just don't know it. You don't believe it. Because it's all kind of there's a program. You know, you kind of know what's coming. There's going to be another bridge contest soon, and you may win it next time. And that you can build toward that. You know, and you know, I have a birthday coming up. That's an event. It's like there. I know that's going to happen. Of course, I don't know that's going to happen. I may not make it to my birthday. But you think you will, and you build this structure, and you say, I know where I'm headed, I know where I am, I know what it's about, I know what I came from, and none of it's true. None of it, not 1 second of it is true. It just appears to be true because there's a certain consistency in the way this manifestation occurs. It appears to have coherence. It appears to have meaning and value. And more than that, it does have coherence, it does have meaning, and it does have value. And it's worth being here to experience that, to experience this underlying, amazing sense of purpose that ultimately doesn't survive. At least not in the sense that we know, this manifested sense of having it within the world as we know it. One of the key things I have experienced in the last several weeks, and it's fairly new to me, not 100% because we've all touched it, but it's really new in its magnitude. And it has to do with what I would call, it moves from loneliness to aloneness. And it is really powerful in a way that it has never been powerful for me before. The sense that nothing exists but I am. And I don't see this as a concept. It's something I now understand and know. There is nothing other than what I am. And of course, when I say I am, I'm not talking Bruce has created the universe, because we all know that's absurd. But I am that which has created the universe in which Bruce exists. I also know that you are that as well. I also know that some of you have glimpsed that, some of you know it deeply, and some of you are not there yet. When we know that together, we will look into each other's eyes and we will be profoundly connected and intimately alone. Having retired, I often wake up in the day with no sense of that day. Nothing that has to happen. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I have babysitting. Sometimes I have lunch with a friend. There are occasional things that crop up that give a focus. But a lot of the time I wake up and I know there's nothing here. period. And I get a feeling that I can create anything I want. I can evoke, do, imagine, live out anything. And the weight of that is horrifying on some level. Some people find that liberating. I look at it and go, I don't know what to do with it. I really don't. And so I just don't do anything. I just kind of, okay. You know, I have a certain routine. I'll get the newspaper. I'll eat breakfast. I avoid half of the paper, mostly the front section. I don't want to know too much about the world. I know enough. And I just feel the day, and then stuff starts to come. Stuff starts to happen. It arises. It could be an email. It could be something sets me off in the newspaper. It could be an emotion rises out of nowhere. A thought comes in from the outer reaches of the universe. Whatever it is, and it starts to fill the day. And I'm always amazed by it. It's like, oh. And a lot of the time, my days are centered on babies, or a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the newness of that is beyond expression. It's the true teaching of my life now comes from a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I go, I see the world anew, if you will, and it's an unbelievably beautiful place, and it's unbelievably disturbing that we mess it up so badly. But it is really extraordinary, and we, the ones who mess it up, can, if we want, re-examine ourselves and find a new approach to living that could actually turn this very disturbed space into something quite exquisitely beautiful. But it takes an enormous will and effort and desire to be selfless enough to work for the larger cause as opposed to the individual cause. And you can't work for the larger cause for your own personal salvation, because that's not going to work. It has to become really deeply selfless. And what you finally understand profoundly is that just being conscious, just being present, serves in ways you cannot imagine. Just being you, present with yourself, with another, with nothingness, with absence, with aloneness, available to whatever stirs, is very potent and very real. And you can bring that to every situation, into every part of your life, and you can serve the world by just being you. Period. Just who you are. It's an extraordinary thing. You are a fulcrum for transformation and change in anyone you want to be with. All you have to do is show up with others. Really show up. Just be present with another person. Listen to them. Be available and hear. Acknowledge their presence by witnessing it from a depth of being that is not your ego going, yeah, 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 yeah. It's like, what will happen if you do that is you will start to love people. If you really listen to people, if you're really present with them, the only thing that can happen is you will love them. And why will you love them? Because they are yourself. They are your very self. And as you start to open to yourself and love others, yourself will expand. And as you open to yourself and love, that will reach out to everyone around you. So here's what happens in aloneness. There's a sense often of enormous loss. A realization that nothing means anything, that it's all your own play, it's all your own drama, it's all your own creation, it's all you fooling yourself, pretending that everything is other, everybody else is other, that you've created all these unknown people and all these known people, all these events and all of these situations. All of this has come into being as a kind of distraction and entertainment for you. In the end, you're all by yourself. But the pain of that comes when you reflect it through your individual body-mind. When you learn to sit still, to meditate, to let go of your individual body-mind self, when you learn to go deep, something happens inside you. It's an embrace of being, and it's an embrace of not being. It's a still point of, it's called potential energy as opposed to kinetic energy. Potential energy is what could be, but it's before it is. It's just presence. That stillness can, and for many people does, become so absolute and wondrous, if you will, that you just go, yes, and then you are. And it's no longer you, it's no longer them, it's just this still point. It can be absent of everything, and it can be full of everything. And then you learn to traverse uncharted waters. You learn to just be in whatever arises. If you only perceive this through your ego-minded self, you will find loneliness to be very difficult. And you will try to fill it with stuff, whatever stuff you can come up with. God knows, we all have a world full of stuff. The teaching of meditation, of being still, of finding your pathway into what is, liberates you from ego-minded self as a dominating force. Until you die and leave this world, it does not get rid of that dominating force. It's just there as part of the whole. And you learn to love it, and in loving it, to love everything else that's been created. And so learning to love yourself becomes this vehicle for loving everyone else. Or at least being present with everybody else and letting that love occur. It's not an action that you have to take or practice, it just starts to happen. That begins to change the nature of loneliness. Not aloneness, loneliness. It changes the nature of loneliness because if you can be with another person, even people you don't know, you can feel a community. You can start to enter into the world and meet new people and be present with them and start to fill your life with presence of others. So this meditation act allows you to love yourself enough to love others and to fill your life. And then this meditation takes you to a place, ultimately, where everyone you love does not exist. That in a sense you see them all as creation of this alone being, this pure being. And it's so interesting to me because this vastness of presence, this vast whatever we are, in as deep a stillness and purity and openness and stillness as it achieves, still appears to have within it this tiny little speck of, what else is there? What else? What else am I? What else can I find? Have I explored the totality? Is there more? I want to see. Really fascinating. That may disappear at some point, I don't know. I really don't know. But I find it in myself. And I find that as deep as I go, there's this thing that goes, what else? It's a kind of delight. It's a kind of uncertainty. And because anything could manifest from that. Anything. And every artist in the world knows what I'm talking about. The greatness of being an artist, I think I may have talked about this last week, but the blank page, the canvas, the empty stage, what can fill that? What can come there? And that very element is what arises out of nothingness and why we exist, I think. We want to know what we are. We want to know what this is. And you know, and look around you. You know, I mean, it's so full of amazement what we discover trying to know what we are. And that's where I get tongue-tied, and that's where I just, for myself anyway, kind of shut up. And I kind of keep thinking, oh my God, am I going to give another talk about the same thing again? And I don't know what to say about that, because I can kind of do it forever on another level as nothing. I have nothing left. Nothing left that I, you know, I mean, it keeps coming, but it's not, it's just, wow, 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 period. So, these uncharted waters are quite fascinating, and I'm happy to sail them with you or not. You know, I've talked about this a lot. I'm happy to, you know, stop the process here because I don't have anything much more to give you than what I've given. On the other hand, it keeps wanting to give, and as long as that happens, why not? Why not share it? But it can't exactly be communicated like I'm communicating it. It can't, I mean, I can keep throwing these words at you, and you can go, I kind of get it. Oh, that's interesting. That's not going to do it. But what does do it is interesting. It's the sitting that we do. And I have to say, that's also going into uncharted territory. There's something going on with each one of us in this sitting, in this class, that is deeper and more energetic in a way, in a very, very deep way, than I've ever known it before. And it's really potent, and it's coming out of my love for my grandchildren, interestingly. Whatever that is, I am finding a way into your infantile being, and I am re-loving it, if you will, in ways that either has been missing for a long time or hasn't been there at all. It's hard to know. But whatever it is, every one of you is responding to it in a huge way. Every one of you is, I can feel the infant child in you reaching for this thing that just says, just hold me, just love me. That's all it wants. And that's what's happening here. It's really simple. It's just loving you and embracing you and all of your potential, even though we're all here pretty much potentialized on some level. It's loving you, and it's got more to give. It just keeps having more to give. It's really kind of fascinating. And it's undoing a lot of the stuff that's been given that's kind of gone in directions that haven't served you well. You can rebirth yourself, if you will. You can be reborn in yourself by letting this energy come through every week. This energy comes in, and I'm amazed by it, how it finds its way into these deep, deep recesses of you and just loves you, hugs you, tells you how wonderful you are, because you are. That's what I can't get over. You are. I don't know how you found your way here, but this loves you so much. And that's what's really amazing. It's just amazing. And you can take it home with you or not. You know, it kind of cares and doesn't care, because it's got a lot of beings out there. And what's so interesting is whatever's happening in this room, I can't do it the same way with everybody else on the street, but it's still happening on the street. And everything that I'm doing, you can do. So everything that comes out of this sitting, you can carry out there, and it can just keep proliferating into the world, and it's a beautiful dynamic. So if it's not for these words, which I find already so misleading in their own way, it's the simplicity of the exchange. The simplicity of this weird energy work that we do, which is just looking at each other and feeling our way into the commonality of our being, into the presence of who we are, the unborn truth of our nature, the childlike, infantile reality of who we are. That's what we're doing, and we are all that. We are old wise men and women, and we are infants at the exact same time. We are born and we are unborn at the same time, and this energy knows that. And it knows what to do to get you in alignment with that truth, to get you out of your ego-minded, limited idea of who you are and free you into this larger truth which has absolutely no truth in it. It just is. And we're not even sure of that. But right now it definitely appears to be. So, having said all of that and shared this uncharted talk with you, you know, I can leave you with the words that I love you deeply, and I'm grateful you show up, and I'm glad this happens. I don't know why I'm glad it happens, I cannot tell you, but it sure feels worth it on some level. Any questions?
Let's see. You talk about that there's really nothing ultimately. And I'm thinking about, I sense people when they're not physically present, and they might actually have died already, or they're just somewhere else. But the fact that I can sense someone who's dead feels like they still exist on some level.
Well, certainly on one level they exist in your memory and your mind, so that's a kind of a place for them to be, but do they exist in the supernatural sense? Probably. Everything that was is. So there's still, I think, in my mind, it's all happening, you know, and you know, the mind can't deal with timelessness, but we move toward timelessness in that state of non-ego mind. It becomes, it's in a way confused for the mind to grasp, but it's not confusing. And you get a sense of infinite expression. And it all is happening. It's all happening. And it's reducing into something as it goes toward nothingness that is somehow oneness. It's one thing. All the people you've ever known, ever will know, everything you know about yourself, it's all one thing. And that one thing will seem very personal when you start to leave this world. It'll be like you take all that with you. Do you leave anything behind? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, yes, it seems logically we do. But when we return into nothingness, it will feel like you're taking everything that ever is or was with you. That includes everyone you're feeling. Everyone you feel when they're not here are still there. My mom and dad are still around, you know. I mean, my aunts and uncles, they're all at play here somehow. If nothing else, wedded into the DNA of my physical being. You know, I grew, they wove me into who I am on some level, along with a lot of other people. So there's a way of looking at it just biologically, but there's also this other thing of what are we, which who knows what we are molecularly, who knows, but we're all pieces of each other. And so, yes, everybody's around in a way. You can make it whatever part of the story you want to make it. The story we tell ourselves is so individualized and so real to us. And I can only tell you, in time you will have to let go of that story, but what does that change? Maybe nothing. Your story may be 100% true in the midst of no truth. And whatever that does to your brain, your truth is truth. It is for now. And so if you feel people floating around around you in the universe, or present, or in your existence, that's your story. That's your story. There you go.
But that seems contradictory to that there's nothing, because I feel like they still exist.
Yes, right, but that's just...
Maybe I'm still in the limited...
Yes, you're in this space, in whatever dimension you want to call this, the third dimension, the rules all... Supernatural is the next dimension, or the one below. That's supernatural. This is natural. This is where it's all real. Trust me, we're not limited to this. And what happens when the boundaries between this and that disappear, all the rules are different. They're just completely different. These rules are still operating, but they're operating now with this whole other set of understandings, and they contradict everything that's here on some level, enough that you look at this world through very different prism. And you look at people who are following the rules and you go, yeah, they got a long ways to go, because those rules don't really operate beyond here, and yet there's no way to tell that to anybody until the demarcations are gone. And those demarcations will go away. If you keep doing meditation, they're going to disappear. And I know for you, they do disappear. And then they come back, and they disappear, and they come back, and that's kind of how it works. It's like a rubber band, or not, a paper clip. Crack. It just finally cracks. And that's what happens to all of us. It cracks, and you're in a bigger dimension. And Rudy would say, then there's a million others that just keep happening. Yeah, kind of. I think that's kind of true. But I will tell you, the sense of it is that ultimately, and that's a very complicated word. I was going to say negative, but it's not. Ultimately, it appears right now, for this person who's talking, that it resolves itself and there's nothing there, except there's no time, no space, no quality of anything. It just is. But somehow, in that is what else is there that wants to emerge? I don't know. I think. And it gives birth, not to you, to everything. And you along with it, as a perceiver of it. And if you try to ask logically, well, how does that actually happen? Well, then you find Einsteins and Bohrs and all these various great thinkers and scientists to try to tell you how it happens. And do they even get close? I mean, they're discovering it's weirder and weirder and weirder than they even imagined. That's because it is weirder than you can imagine.
I hope I can articulate this. But when you talk about, I remember a few weeks ago, we have our story and our projections, and you've gone past that, and it's a place of nothingness and uncharted waters. And maybe there is a door or something, but the senses aren't detecting it. So you just wait for spontaneous happenings and go with that. And I remember in John Mann's book, he talked about a class Rudy gave about astral projection. And he said, you go to a place, so number one, I want to ask, in what you're talking about, what is the place where you go when you do that? Is that where you are or beyond that? But he also said something interesting that I try to get out of my head and in my heart, but it just makes me curious, because he said, you go there and it's 10 to 100 times more refined energy, and you can do in 1 year what you would do in 10 years when you do that. But he also said, if you teach this to anybody, you have damaged yourself spiritually. And I'm not sure everyone would be able to do what he said. No, but I always wondered about that. People, if Hitler probably crossed over and he served his purpose and it's fine, or whatever. No, you not.
Let me. First of all, I was there when Rudy gave the astral projection talk. I had no idea what he was talking about. I could not follow it for the life of me. And if I listen to it even now, it's beyond me. I used to astral project a lot when I was younger. So, I mean, I would literally have these moments of catatonia, and I would lie there feeling like I can't move my body, and then I would hear this engine-like sound that was beyond anything I'd ever heard. I called it the generator, and then I'd go, and I'd shoot out of my body, and I learned how to fly around my room and how to fly outside my room, and I flew through my bloodstream. I mean, I had amazing adventures in the astral realm. I never knew how I did it. And I used to be terrified of it because it's pretty scary at first. And then it's freeing, and then it becomes something like almost like lucid dreaming. You can create worlds out there. And I remember flying away from the planet Earth once because I could, faster and faster until I couldn't see the Earth. And then I got, oh my God, I'll never find my way back. And I shot back in my body, and there I was. And it's only happened occasionally since that time for me. There's nothing about it other than a kind of incredible entertainment aspect and a sense of knowing that you're not your body, you're this mind, but there's still a kind of I in it. There's an I in the universe, and that's very different than the I which becomes the universe. And I don't mean the ego I becomes the universe. The I realizes that it is all there is, and that the universe exists within it, kind of. That's kind of the learning curve that starts to occur. I don't know what Rudy was talking about, and as you talk about it, you sound as confused as I was when I first heard it.
Well, yeah, I wondered why he would teach something that would damage.
I don't know why he did it. It was up in Big Indian. I don't know why he gave it to us. He felt it was the future of the work somehow. I talk about uncharted waters. I would put it aside, personally. I don't think you need to go to the astral teaching. It's very contained within manifested form, and I'm trying to help lead you to a place where you can let go of all of the need to have a supernatural power or a dangerous power. The only thing dangerous about what we do is that it will, at some point, allow you or cause you to let go of the very thing that defines you as a separate entity. That is scary to the thing which thinks and believes and needs to believe that it's separate. So if your ego mind doesn't want to go there, or if it's still holding on to parts of itself, that's going to get shattered, and it's not going to be easy. It'll be like a psychotic episode. It'll be really tricky to let go of all that stuff, or you will just go, and you will let it go. It depends on the person. It's dangerous to the person not ready for it, and it's dangerous to a person who has no language for it. You know, and I've often said, I think many institutions are filled with people who have had this and don't know what it means. There's nothing in their background that tells them that this is natural or can be, you know. So put all that aside. Put it aside. If you want to keep at this work and you want it to go as far as it will go, it goes farther than you can imagine. If you want to contain it within this level of existence and give you a better life and a sweeter life, it will work pretty much up till around the end. And at the end, you can no longer not face what's coming. You just can't. What this kind of does is allows you to see what's coming way early in the game. And that allows you to live your life very differently. But at the very, very end, at the precipice of between here and there, between life and death, if you will, between being and not being is the way it would look, that's a big moment. It's a very big moment. And at that point, there's no escaping it. It's going to happen. If that can happen for you now, in this lifetime, which will not be full death, of course, because you're biologically still here, but it will give you an enormous glimpse into the nature of reality, or at least a nature of reality. And as I'm saying, even that will fall away. Nothing will hold up. Nothing will hold up. You know, it's really fascinating. I have a very dear friend who I talk to regularly, and she's my Socrates. She doesn't let me get away with anything, and she's not a student, so she doesn't feel that she can't say things to me. And we're both the same age, born on the same day, March 10th. And so we refer to our lives constantly, and she's talking about the great disappointment. And she says, we've entered the age of the great disappointment. Everything starts to disappoint. And it's really interesting, because in a way it does. It disappoints in terms of, you are not going to survive this. And so you're disappointed that you won't be able to smell the flowers. You're disappointed you're going to miss these people. Everything, your body's falling apart. Your mind isn't working. Your memory's gone. All of these disappointments come in. It's all part of the process. But if you have along the way found the stillness of being and the vastness of being, the disappointments of the loss of the ego mind will be put in perspective. They will be different than the disappointments that occur to someone for whom everything is disappearing, which is the nature of the journey after a certain age.
Okay, thank you. I think my question was, is it in this realm or the astral stuff, or is it out there? But it's
It's
here,
not. It's within here. It's
okay.
not out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing is without there, including all the dangerous teachings. There's no. I mean, they're not really dangerous.
Kind of time and effort and transformation. Maybe it takes a long time to sit and be able to come to a place where you're ready to let go and
It does.
pop, as you say.
Yeah.
And I've also heard said that that change takes a lot of energy, but also on the other hand, or maybe not the other hand, but also that higher power, or the universe, is at any moment maybe willing or ready or to have
It's
you
really
change.
yes. I'm sorry. Is there a question beyond that?
Yeah. I guess the question is implied. Why does it take so much energy to, let's say, just let go, and that's it?
No, it's a fascinating question. But the real question is, why do we hold on so hard? Why are we so committed to this reality? Well, partly it's programming.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't program us lightly. It puts the fear of God in us, as you might say. Leaving this place is not easy. Loss is terrifying to all of us, and the attraction, the attachment is so overwhelming, and it's meant to be. It wants us to be totally committed to this reality. And so we are, one way or another, even if we're angry at it, even if we want to chop off heads, we're bless you, we're very involved in this reality. So undoing that involvement is really tricky. Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for however long, and I mean, you try all these different things. The austerities, he said, didn't work. Ultimately, what works? What helps you untie the knots or untie the powerful strings that hold you to this manifested world? Well, it takes a long time to figure it out. I mean, it did me. It took me a long time, and and as I say, it's still happening on levels I've never seen before. But it's an extraordinarily worth it experience. But anybody could at any given second just go done. If you willed that into being, if you were willing to do that, you could do it. But we probably know about it. It's rarely achieved that way, because this world is meant to be addictive. Because it wouldn't build itself, it wouldn't construct itself. Whoever created this, whatever created this, maybe which we have, God has. I mean, however you want to imagine the creation, which for me is a fascinating story. The creation, the idea that we create something, only sustains itself if it's meaningful, if it has purpose and value and rewards us for it and makes us afraid of not continuing to do it. It's really powerful. So the undoing of that, in a way, frees you from all of those rules and laws on some level, but they put you in a state of amazement and wonder that it exists at all. You walk through life no longer compelled exactly by the same things. I mean, if somebody was going to hold my head underwater for 5 minutes, I would not be happy. I would struggle like mad. But I know that I walk through life without facing fears so much as facing what is. And what is so profoundly unexpected and unknown. Even though it may seem to have certain kinds of predictabilities, it's not. It's uncharted. And you walk through life without ever really knowing what's next. And once you are aware of that, and you go, I mean, look at you guys. Who are you guys in my life? Where did you all come from? I've only been here a few months, and you guys are all in my life, and you're so real and meaningful to me. You know, it's like I couldn't have predicted this last August. I wouldn't have known any of you. You know, and yet you're sitting here drawing out this stuff and teaching me and opening my heart in so many ways I never would have known. Where does that come from? So I walk around in a state of, I can call it grace or amazement. You can do that too. You don't have to go, oh God, tomorrow I got to do this. You don't have to do that. You choose to do that because that's how we've grown up. You know, you've been around the block enough times, or literally around the sun enough times, to go, tomorrow's probably going to be like yesterday. Well, it may not be. And if it is, it really isn't, because it's only your mind that's programmed to think that it was predictable or repeatable. It's really going to be completely different in its own subtle ways, and maybe even gross and dramatic ways. It's going to be different. Once you understand that, you open yourself up to all this, and you let go of all of the stuff that locks you up into predictability and into the unhappiness of existence. But it's energy and effort, and it takes time, unless you don't want it to. You know, it's kind of your choice.
You mentioned about today that, you know, about this book, I Am That.
I am that, yes.
So you are that, she's that,
yes.
He's that, I am that. If I am faced with someone with the highest level of atrocities, that is going to put the sword right here and kill that, is that person also a that?
Yes.
That is killing this that?
Well, I mean, most...
Did I make myself clear?
Yes, you have. I mean,
Okay.
no, truly understand that there is ego mind, which is a very small sort of manifestation of very centralized sense of I. And then there is the I am, from which that emerges. Most people live in this tiny little construct, and it's a very unpleasant place for most people. It's full of suffering, desire, confrontation, complexity, and we live in that. And then you finally say, I can't handle it. This is horrible. I want to meditate. I'm going to meditate. I got to do something to get me out of this misery, or else you get drugs, whatever you're going to do. But it's just too uncomfortable. And so meditation comes for some people, and they go, ooh, this feels good. Back into the little complexity of stuff. I'm going to meditate again. Oh, I don't think I like that teacher. I want to give somebody else. Maybe let's try this, try that one. And you do it again. And you finally, after a while, establish, if you're lucky, a kind of a pattern of letting go and of becoming more and more free of your crazy little self. How much freer you become is kind of dependent on how much you're willing to let go of that persona that you feel safe and comfortable in. And that's a drama for each individual person to learn to go through that. And everyone has to. Everyone has to do that. I will tell you, the guy who's about to cut your head off has not gone very far on that journey. That person is caught up in so much pain and only wants to inflict that pain on others because it's all he knows or she knows. I completely empathize with them. I know what they're doing, but they are so unevolved, so unprepared. And I don't know if I can project the Tibetan Book of the Dead journey for those guys after they leave this world. I don't suspect they will have 87 virgins or whatever they are waiting for. I think it's going to be a pretty terrifying realization that their very small little self was unprepared for the vastness of the love of the universe. And believe me, the punishment that comes for people like that is not from the universe, it's from their own very psyche that says, what have I done? What have I done? And it's horrifying. horrifying. And they have to do exactly what we're talking about here, assuming you get another life, which I have a feeling kind of happens. I don't believe that you're in infinite hell, because it makes no sense to me, but I think you may get another life to work this one out, but with all of the consequence. And probably, I don't know that this is true, whoever's head you cut off, you will meet again. And you will have to make it right, just like Groundhog Day. You will have to make it right in order to move on. And that's why karma is so powerful. And that's why the freedom from karma as you get from meditation, the more you meditate, the more release you get from creating the karma that will pull you back into that little horrible little cycle of your individual self. You will not come, you'll be done with that kind of thing. What happens then? I'm telling you, I'm in uncharted waters. I can tell you what I've read. I can tell you what other books tell me, what I'm beginning to feel inside, but I'm not taking any of it as ultimate. It's all just another idea. It's another concept. It's another way of explaining the story to myself, and I'm not buying any of it. I'm just saying, big story, wow, gets bigger, but it doesn't mean anything. So that's a weird place to live from. That's all I can tell you. I wake up and I go, well, I don't understand it. But I do know when that guy comes to cut off your head, if you're an awakened guy, you hopefully will do what Mahatma Gandhi did when the guy was standing in front of him with the gun. You go, Shiva Om, Om Namah Shivaya, whatever it is. You recognize it as God taking you out. And that, who else takes you out of this? And what happens at that moment? Well, we can talk about it forever. We'll find out. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. This is a long talk. Okay, I think that's enough now. Okay, well, we'll try to do this again next time, or you know, and we keep it going. And when you're really bored with this, I'll talk to the camera, or it will shut up. Okay. But thank you for coming today. I appreciate it.